they can, and they're actually really good at it. You know.
Do you feel like you're the kind of keeper of the history of Woodrow in a way?
For my family, I feel perhaps I am, especially for the family farm. I think I seem to be one of the only ones that, especially for my generation, that had any kind of interest in maybe reviving it or just wanting to know about it. Only because I found a way through my art to do that. But now that I have done that, like my dad and his sisters, they're really into it too now, and it's kind of a good thing. It's sad though, because my grandfather, who was a history nut and really was proud about the shop and the town itself, didn't really get to see this happen. I go twice a week to the home, and they all know me there. Like they knew who I was before I got there, kind of thing. Just because, well, my grandma talks a lot about her, grandkids. She wasn't like a farm mother. She was a teacher, music teacher. She was good at sewing and cooking, but that wasn't like her thing. So she was kind of an oddball, and she still is considered an oddball. But that's what I like about her. It's now we actually have a real relationship. We're friends. It's not something I feel like I have to do. It's not something I want to do. She's so bright and so sharp. She hasn't lost a marble.
There's nothing that I can't handle. We've been through it all. Still the problems and everything seems to be good.
You can visit the town of Woodrow and Graham's World on the Socket website, cbc.ca/socket. Now let's go back to the bus depot. Carlos and Jason Sanchez have always made art together. The Montreal brothers are known for their slick, staged photographs. Their images have depicted everything from lost childhood to sexual predators. When did you start creating the moment instead of waiting for the moment?
Probably like in my last year, my graduating year. We started doing like scenes. Jay would be one of the actors, and a bunch of our friends would just make up like gangster scenes and stuff. Just, mostly just having fun and, a case of beer and let's shoot some film. And then, just got serious. And so Jay pulled himself as model out, and we started working together more seriously.
Would you guys be able to do what you do without each other? You're answering each other's questions. You obviously collaborate really closely. Would you be able to do this on your own?
Maybe if I had a lot of money. But I will.
Cheap labor again.
No. It's nice to have someone to work with and not only have one vision, because it's like, he can fix up the holes that I have in my ideas, and I can do the same. And I mean, I do see mirror. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for a good working, team.
This summer, the brothers were given a big city bus and told to work with a community group to make an art piece. Carlos and Jason chose to work with an organization for people who've had near-death experiences.
What the hell can we do with a 40-foot bus? It's a little hard. I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, but it's not far. we still have to smash it so it looks good, but we also got to make sure that the wheels move so we can properly tow it. So, you got to think about that, then you think about just logistics of, getting the light out, and but the challenge is nice. It's a nice change from working in photography, and we're thinking about holograms and video projections and stuff. We thought about smashing the bus, making it look like it's been in a head-on collision, and then we said, well, who the hell are we going to work with, So we thought about working with people who have had near-death experiences, and then so we said, okay, we'll work with these people, but what we do with that? So what we're doing is we're taking these people's visions, translating them into an image, projecting it into the back of the bus using this holographic video technique. So the viewers will be back here on a scaffold or on like a little platform, and they'll look through the back window of the bus to see. Normally like video projection, like it's on like a screen or something. This will be images that will move within the space of the bus. It's pretty awesome.
The holographic video is based on this next woman's story. Now, her tale of family life is harrowing, but she's glad to have the Sanchez brothers interpret her experience.
When I started to do therapy, because I come from a very dysfunctional family, and when I started, it was so good to me to learn who I was, and because all my life I felt weird, like apart or very different from everybody. I was with the psychiatrist. I remembered this near-death experience, and I was 40 years old.
How old were you when it happened?
4 years old. So that's why all my life I felt so different. And I saw this little girl, and she wasn't going away, so I told him, I think I have to talk to you about, I see this little girl, and he said, okay, what do you see? And when I started to talk about it, I felt it, like I was living it. And I told him, I said, I started to laugh, I said, I think I'm going to talk to you about my death. It's my father that beat me, but it's the only time that he touched me, and I died. And I don't have the clinical evidence. I know it, like he beat me with his hand, like with a strap first, and then it was with his fist. And the last thing I saw, I turned around and I saw his face, and then it just went black. And that's when I tasted blood, a bone that perforated my heart. And I knew this, I don't know how, when I came back to life, it's sort of like a miracle. It's hard to explain this, how it happened, but anyways, there's a part that I don't remember. It's when I came back. I only remember like the next morning. I was in front of a wall of light, and I entered the light, and this light being came to m'accueillir, took me by the hand, and it was Jesus. I laugh because I say, Jesus, he's my friend. I know Jesus, he's my friend.
What you were telling me about your personal experience was very moving and subtle in some ways, experience. Are you worried that their smashed up bus might miss the point?
Carlos and Jason are very respectful people, and when I met them, the way they approached me, it really felt good. They're good people. They asked my advice, and they talked about it, and I was okay with it. You talk about this, and people don't, it's not that they don't believe it, but it's far from, yes. So the more we talk about it, and the more people know about it, I'm really happy they're doing this.
You can see the Sanchez brothers bus on the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City, September the 15th to the 17th, and then in Laval later in September. This is Socket on CBC Radio 1 and Sirius Satellite Radio 137. Corner of the country. Young Canadians who are garnering international attention, reinterpreting the definition of art, and creating our culture every day. Go to our fantastic website, cbc.ca/socket, to see their work, and drop us a line if you like the show. I'm Angela Antle, and thanks to Den Mother Ramona Deering and Edit Suite Big Daddy Tom Ronan for our Socket Summer. This week, Socket also needs to thank the entire extended family. Our web designers, Shauna Cake and Gordon High. Also the Duckworth Street cousins, Kathy Collins, Jackie Druken, Bob Sharp, Terry Windsor, Carl Hodder, Scott Yates, and Zach Gowdy. As well, great aunt Ann Spencer and Uncle Glenn Tilley. And my father-in-law, Murr the Blur Quinn. Now, Stuart Young probably wouldn't appreciate getting a corny handle, so to him we'll just say a giant thank you.
Listening to CBC Radio 1. I'm Alan Neal. Coming up on Ontario Today, if you go to a website called campsite24.ca, you'll be told to have fun while you explore the site and learn about environmental protection, plants and wildlife, and Ontario's magnificent provincial parks. You'll also see an ad for Aquafina, which if you click on it will bring you to more ads, including Pepsi's logo. Some people aren't so happy about the role that Pepsi might be playing on a kid's website. We're going to be talking about that and more coming up on Ontario Today.
Somerville, who worked as a producer at Ideas 40 years ago when the show first went to air. I'm Paul Kennedy, and I've got to tell you that I'm really proud about this next clip, except, of course, I had nothing to do with it. A few years back, I did an 8-part series called Learning from the Oceans, about which I'm still proud. But way back in 1972, Ideas had Thor Heyerdahl, world-famous marine biologist and leading adventurer on the Kon-Tiki expedition, in which he sailed by raft halfway across the Pacific. Here's Thor Heyerdahl talking about the ocean from a 1972 UN Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm.
Is the ocean vulnerable? In 1947, when the balsa raft Kon-Tiki crossed 4,300 miles, or nearly 8,000 kilometers of the Pacific in 101 days, we on board saw no trace of man until we spotted an old wreck of a sailing ship on the coral reef where we landed. The ocean was clean and crystal clear. In 1969, it was therefore a blow to us on board the raft ship Ra to observe from our papyrus bundles that entire stretches of the Atlantic Ocean were polluted. We drifted slowly past plastic containers, nylon, empty bottles and cans. Yet, most conspicuous of all was the oil. First off the African coast, next in mid-ocean, and finally in front of the Caribbean islands, we drifted for days on end through water reminding us more of a city harbor than of the open sea.
We built a case that it was, the prevailing one was still American exceptionalism, but you'd have to sit down and make it. John Didion, I was this year, or the year so far following Quintana's death, different from the year following John's death, and do you think you're different because you've had that experience in grief?
No, it's different in a lot of ways, but I haven't really dealt with it yet.
I mean, it's unspeakably different in some ways. But one way in which it's different is that Quintana was an adult who was married to someone. She lived her own life. I didn't see her every day, so there is, except when she was sick. So there is not as dramatic a. I think it's going to take me longer to actually grasp that she's dead.
Writing the Year of Magical Thinking helped you get through that year of John's death. Do you know how you, once you return to life, you'll be able to deal with Quintana?
No, I've got a lot of work to do, though, when I get back. I mean, I've got a rewrite on a picture, and then I've got another picture to write. So that will be very hard, useful. It'll be a good thing to do without needing to tap into my own emotions.
Had enough of doing that?
Yeah. For the moment.
It's a great privilege to have a chance to meet you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Joan Didion in Toronto last fall. Now here she is again reading from her memoir, The Year of Magical Thinking.
An outline. It is now, as I begin to write this, the afternoon of October 4th, 2004. 9 months and 5 days ago, at approximately 9 o'clock on the evening of December 30th, 2003, my husband, John Gregory Dunn, appeared to or did experience at the table where he and I had just sat down to dinner in the living room of our apartment in New York, a sudden massive coronary event that caused his death. Our only child, Quintana, had been for the previous 5 nights unconscious in an intensive care unit at Beth Israel Medical Center's Singer Division. At that time, a hospital on East End Avenue, more commonly known as Beth Israel North, where what had seemed a case of December flu sufficiently severe to take her to an emergency room on Christmas morning had exploded into pneumonia and septic shock. This is my attempt to make sense of the period that followed, weeks and then months that cut loose any fixed idea I ever had about death, about illness, about probability and luck, about good fortune and bad, about marriage and children and memory, about grief, about the ways in which people do and do not deal with the fact that life ends, about the shallowness of sanity, about life itself. I have been a writer my entire adult life. As a writer, even as a child, long before what I wrote began to be published, I developed a sense that meaning itself was resident in the rhythms of words and sentences and paragraphs, a technique for withholding whatever it was I thought or believed behind an increasingly impenetrable polish. The way I write is who I am or have become, yet this is a case in which I wish I had, instead of words and their rhythms, a cutting room, equipped with an Avid, a digital editing system on which I could touch a key and collapse the sequence of time, show you simultaneously all the frames of memory that come to me now, let you pick the takes, the marginally different expressions, the variant readings of the same lines. This is a case in which I need more than words to find the meaning. This is a case in which I need whatever it is I think or believe to be penetrable, if only for myself. December 30th, 2003, a Tuesday. We had seen Quintana in the 6th floor ICU at Beth Israel North. We had come home. We had discussed whether to go out for dinner or eat in. I said I would build a fire we could eat in. I built the fire. I started dinner. I asked John if he wanted a drink. I got him a scotch and gave it to him in the living room, where he was reading in the chair by the fire where he habitually sat. The book he was reading was by David Fromkin, a bound galley of Europe's last summer who started the Great War in 1914. I finished getting dinner. I set the table in the living room where, when we were home alone, we could eat within sight of the fire. I find myself stressing the fire because fires were important to us. I grew up in California. John and I lived there together for 24 years. In California, we heated our houses by building fires. We built fires even on summer evenings because the fog came in. Fires said we were home. We had drawn the circle. We were safe through the night. I lit the candles. John asked for a second drink before sitting down. I gave it to him. We sat down. My attention was on mixing the salad. John was talking, then he wasn't.
At one point in the second or minutes before he stopped talking, he had asked me if I had used single malt scotch for his second drink. I said no, I used the same scotch I had used for his first drink. Good, he said. I don't know why, but I don't think you should mix them. At another point in these seconds of that minute, he had been talking about why World War I was the critical event from which the entire rest of the 20th century flowed. I have no idea which subject we were on, the Scotch or World War I, at the instant he stopped talking. I only remember looking up. His left hand was raised and he was slumped motionless. At first I thought he was making a failed joke, an attempt to make the difficulty of the day seem manageable. I remember saying, "Don't do that." When he did not respond, my first thought was that he had started to eat and choked. I remember trying to lift him far enough from the back of the chair to give him the Heimlich. I remember the sense of his weight as he fell forward, first against the table, then to the floor. In the kitchen by the telephone, I had taped a card with the New York Presbyterian ambulance numbers. I had not taped these numbers by the telephone because I anticipated a moment like this. I had taped these numbers by the telephone in case someone in the building needed an ambulance. Someone else.
Joan Didion reading from The Year of Magical Thinking. It's published by Random House, and there's now talk of a stage version starring Vanessa Redgrave. Writers and Company is produced by Mary Stinson. Nancy McElveen is associate producer. Technical operations by Wayne Richards. If you'd like a tape of this program, you can call 1-800-363-1530. We'd also like to hear from you. Please write to Writers and Company, CBC Radio, Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W1E6. Our email address is writersandco@cbc.ca. And the telephone number is 416-205-6631. I'm Eleanor Wachtel, and I'll be back next week. I hope you join me.
So, for instance, if you give how their life is out of 10, they might give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. What's really cool is to get people to imagine, thinking about this aspect of your life, what would 10 out of 10 look like?
But, you know, I'm curious to know whether with your clients, is it often you might see a discrepancy between their fantasy or their, dream and their reality? For instance, let's say, I would like to sing like Barbra Streisand. I'd love to be her, but I can't sing, right? So my dream is one thing, the reality is something else.
Right. So there is a reality. I mean, if somebody comes to me saying, I'd like to get the Olympic record for the 100 meters, there's not much I can do about that, right? We've got physical and other restraints around us. But typically we tend to overplay those restraints, and we tend to underplay our own talents. And really what you're doing as a life coach is you're going, I can see the potential you have, and we can get there. And it's not my job to do it, it's my client's job to do that. But just being able to them to see some of the things that are possible for them gives people the courage to step into that new life.
Do you have any practical advice for people who are nervously anticipating tomorrow, they're being frog-marched into something new, and especially after they've had a fairly good summer, right, relaxing?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things that people can do. The first is hold on to summer a little bit. So here's one of the ways to do that. Actually, remember a moment over the last month or two where it's been one of those perfect summer experiences for you. You've been up at the cottage, or maybe over on the island on a bike ride, or taking a picnic, whatever it might be. And capture that as a moment, and when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, just close your eyes and recapture that moment. Closing your eyes and spending 30 seconds reimagining that will actually reduce your stress levels and calm things down for you. Another thing to do is again, when I say get clear about what's most important in all of the things that are going on for you at the moment. So when you step into any job, you can't do everything perfectly at once. Work out what the one or two most important things are and focus on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. And stick around. We'll talk to you a little bit later on. In the next half hour, Michael Bungay-Stanier will be back to talk more about change. Michael is a life and business coach, and he's also the principal of boxofcrayons.biz. Boxofcrayons.biz, look for that on the web, which is a consulting firm here in Toronto. And the weather right now, 19 degrees. Boy, no change still. A low of 13 tonight, chance of showers, and tomorrow a high of 20, a low of 17.
We once again look to the east on the 4 and westbound lanes.
Him. For the second straight year, Tommy Haas and Robbie Gnepgri played a marathon in the third round of the
Back to the cleanliness and noise levels. Those are the number one evidence when it gets time to studying for exams, so those are the priorities, most definitely. And what do you hear from the students as far as what, they look forward to this year? Well, let's see. I'm trying to think what the most interesting ones are. I think most things are...
I would think the social life would be one.
I was going to say actually being away from home for the first time and being able to experience a little bit more freedom than perhaps they were used to. So just exploring downtown Toronto. So that's obviously a big draw. There are a lot of things that they can participate in, and that's one of the things that I find I try to encourage most so that they'll get the most of their experience here in this 4 years at UT. Well, thanks, Myrtle. And that's a smooth sail ahead for you at Innis College. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Myrtle Millieres is the residence life coordinator for Innis residents at the University of Toronto. Is it smooth sailing out there, Jim?
In most areas, it isn't too bad. No major delays. They had trouble just reporting.
Stanier joined us to talk about how to best manage change.
I couldn't help notice your face, Michael. We were talking earlier about all the students who are competing. You were giving a chuckle about the 300 students who are all over the world. Right. What were you thinking about everything they would have to deal with? I mean, really thrown together in this situation.
Right. Well, there's a whole bunch of new stuff going on for them. Obviously, a lot of them arriving probably at university for the first time. No idea what that involves. They're being thrown into an apartment with 4 other people. There's all sorts of imagination going on about who am I going to be with, what music are they going to play, are they going to pick up after themselves, are they going to worry that I don't wash up my dishes and I cook my meals?
They're probably dealing with some languages you said.
Exactly right. No. So really, to one of those students or anybody going through change, what you want to be doing is actually thinking about what reserves you have to help you cope with change. Now, there's a number of different types of reserves you can have. One, of course, is money, right? Because money can often buy your way out of stuff. But let's say we don't have that. So let's say you don't have that. Although it's useful if you're going to the liquor store, which is clearly a priority for these students. But there are other reserves. One is physical health. So you want to stay healthy. You want to exercise. You want to get sleep. Because if you're physically healthy, that's your cope with stress and change and get the money. Another reserve you want to be building are your relationship reserves. In other words, people who can help reduce stress and some family that you can talk to. Right? You heard Steve the crocodile hunter wrestling with the crocodile. And one of the things with him is that he had a whole bunch of people helping him wrestle with crocodiles. Right. He's sad. More people. And so that we should have more people. It's actually not bad for other people to remember. So you should have a few people around here to help you out. Because when your housemates are driving you crazy in your new apartment or your work, your new job at work is putting you under pressure. How do you do it?
What do you think about, because I get from what you've been saying now, it's moderation. It's moderation, is it balance?
Well, it's, I'm not sure what you mean by
moderation. I mean, so the thing is, you say keep your house, so you're going to, well, you can't do that if you're working at, the kind of putting it down at both ends, kind of thing.
Well, moderation helps. There's a great quote from the poet William Blake that says, "The excess leads to the palace of wisdom." Right? There's actually a thing around excess helps us to understand where those boundaries are. But the thing helps you current and has longevity is, I guess, moderation, right? Walking the middle path.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that because that is very true. Because there's that cat who might say, right, well, if I want to be great, right, like truly great, but I have with moderation and balance, how can I achieve greatness? Right? I mean, I'm sure Dandy knows well, but we're going to ignore it. So it's obedience today, we just spend time at the right computer.
It's a schematic saying that wisdom takes considerable and after you're bad, then you make mistakes, you screw up. That's my experience, right? Generates wisdom for you that helps you be more resilient next time you encounter something. So there's a benefit to getting it wrong. You just want it to be a mistake that's above the waterline, not below the waterline.
Yeah, and it probably happens when you're really young. So what about people, though, who are trying to do it that way? The drug is a million balls in the air. What advice do you have to give to them?
Well, the key advice, this is probably the most helpful question I know, is what are you saying yes to? And to say yes to this, what do you need to say no to? Because many people try to add stuff on, and it's a tough thing. They need resolution, or there's a resolution that's not going to be the case. And what does that mean? I'm saying no to.
When you see clients, when they come in to see you, they have been taking on too many things, saying yes to too much. What's the downside? What have you noticed about these people?
At the moment, just physical exhaustion and being able to do one thing. A lot of it's around frustration around everything I'm doing is excellent, while there's a few things outstanding.
Okay, well, let's respect everybody as they enter this new transition period. Thanks to Michael for coming in, sharing your perspective. Michael Bungay-Stanier, and he is a life and business coach. He's also the principal of boxofcrayons.biz, a consulting firm here in Toronto. And we're going to the news with Martina Fitzgerald. Martina, from the radio sir.
Check 1, 2.
Check.